What is going on, Tentacle? My name is Billy the Skwid, and today's video is going to be toxic.
All my friends are toxic, all ambition is sorrow.
A special kind of toxic that you have never seen on this channel before. The kind of toxic that lurks behind you in the shadows, waiting for the opportunity to strike. Yes, this video, this one right here, will be the most toxic video I have put on the channel indeed. So stick around to the end if you are intrigued by the toxicity. I'm excited to share it with you. And speaking of toxic, let's talk about Elden Ring. And mostly I want to talk today about the most toxic aspects of Elden Ring thus far. This isn't going to be a hit piece on the game itself. I'm very much excited about the game. This is just going to be a fun take on from the initial release announcement up to where we are now. The most toxic things that either the game, FromSoftware and Bandai Namco, or just the community in general have done with this game. It's going to be fun. Like I said, it's going to be lighthearted, so take all of this with a grain of salt because, let's be real, toxicity is all about salt mining. So let's dive right on in, shall we? And there's no better place to start than at the beginning, with FromSoftware releasing a beautiful, well-done cinematic announcement trailer for their upcoming IP. This was back in 2019's E3. They had a huge announcement. Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin. It's going to be amazing. The game is coming. And then you know what they did? They waited 2 years to say anything else, to the point that people thought through the epidemic and everything like that the game had gotten canceled. There was so much speculation going on with Elden Ring that the community basically went stir crazy waiting for any signs that FromSoftware was still working on the game and what to expect from the game. Now, if anybody is familiar with FromSoftware's catalog, they know how they do their marketing. This is the song and dance that FromSoftware always does with their IPs. They always give a really nice announcement trailer to stir up the community again, because they do have a pretty decent gap between their games. And then they go radio silent and let the community do the hype for them.
Here, take this. What's in here?
They let the community speculate, and this is both the most toxic and most genius method of marketing that I can think possible. Funnel all of your resources into that last 5 to 6 months of before a game comes out, and let the community fill in the 2 years prior, baby. That's all you gotta do, and FromSoftware is the kings of that. And while it is toxic, it's great. And then we officially got some gameplay. We got another cinematic trailer that had some gameplay mixed into it, but then we got the full 15-minute showcase of gameplay that Elden Ring had been promising for about 6 months prior to when this actually came out. And it was all good. It's all really, really good. But the most toxic thing from any of the trailers that we've seen this far is this gentleman right here.
Nani?
This little gate captain, well, big gate captain, because in FromSoftware games, we're all stunty for some reason. But this guy became both one of the best and most toxic NPCs that we have interacted with in Elden Ring thus far. He gives you a warning. Hey, don't go through that gate. It's gonna be a bad time. And we're like, nah, we're gonna go through the gate. It will be fine. And then what happens? We get shotgun ballisted in the ass, and we're like, you know what, Dud? You were right. You were right. But there was a sinister motive behind this guy all along. Not only did he not want the ballista to kill us, he wanted the glory for himself. So what does he do? The toxic bastard goes and hides in a dark, secluded corner of the dungeons of the castle, waiting for us to walk through just so that he can reach out and stab us in the back himself.
Shake it, break it.
What a toxic bastard indeed. And then people finally got their hands on the game. And what happens in the beginning of a FromSoftware game? They always put an overpowered enemy right near the starter gate. And this tree sentinel quickly became the bane of all the network test single-player experiences, because he is, without a doubt, one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult world boss in the network test so far. And they put him right outside the starter gate. It is a tried and true FromSoftware formula where they bait you in with a big enemy that you think that you might be able to handle, just to kind of test your mettle to see how you are with this game. And then it quickly proves that you either need to run the hell away or you're gonna die. And it gives you something to go back to later in the game, which I think is always a good thing. It gives you a reason to backtrack, because that asshole kicked my shit in. I'm gonna go get some friends, get bigger, and then come and kick his shit in. It's a great way to do it. And speaking of what sets a move for a FromSoftware game, besides having a giant world boss right outside of the starter gate, What about the first NPC that you interact with that is just the worst? This is White-Faced Var, or Vare. I don't know how you pronounce his name. He's basically Valak the Nun from the Conjuring series mixed with the Man in the Iron Mask. And he will just shit on your entire disposition. Oh, you're a tarnished, are you? Maidenless runt, are you? Go die in a ditch somewhere, will you? Yes, these are all dialogue options that this guy will give you when you interact with him. Definitely setting the tone that in this world, nobody's your friend, and you should treat it that way. And traveling through the lands between, you will get many a challenge, and at the end of these challenges, you should get a reward that goes in tandem with the challenge that you just faced. And for the most part, you will be rewarded quite handsomely for going out and looking around for things in the world, finding dungeons, beating dungeon bosses, and you'll get some really interesting things, one of which is the Flask of Wondrous Physic, and a few things that you can mix in it. So the Flask of Wondrous Physic gives you the ability to mix different things into the flask and get different effects. The two starter things that they give you, one of which increases your stamina, which is very good. It increases your stamina for a short period of time, but the other piece of it, well, it causes you to explode, and I can't think of a more toxic thing to give a player at the beginning when trying to explain a mechanic than something that halves their health just by using it. And yes, it creates a nice, healthy explosion that does a very healthy amount of damage to whoever is caught into it. And this is where I think this is toxic on both fronts. Toxic from the first-time users who think they're getting something neat out of it just to be half health, or potentially killed by their own flasks. Maybe they're swapping through their inventory and they pick the wrong flask. They chug a lug up and boom, they're done. So toxic, but it can also be used to great boon against bosses and maybe even some PvP situations where if you have, say, a flask on your hand, they don't know if you're drinking from your regular flask or your Wondrous Physic flask. So they could just be running up to heal punish you, and what do? And they all die. Quite wonderful and quite toxic. And getting into more gameplay aspects that one might consider a little bit toxic, let's talk about magic. Magic in this network test was very strong. Nobody has any doubts about that, but I think the most egregious offender of toxicity within the network test was the spell Beast Claws. It is a powerhouse of a spell. Not only does it do ridiculous amounts of damage to every single enemy that you hit, it also costs little to nothing to cast. Combine this with the fact that you don't actually have to land any of the barbs besides one to get the full effect of the damage. You would think, oh, this is like a shotgun style weapon where the more pieces of the claw that you hit, the more damage it does. Nope, it only needs one claw to hit to actually do the full extent of the damage from the weapon. And it's so wide at the end that it is almost impossible for anything to not be hit by it. And it makes it extremely hard in a PvP situation for anybody to be able to get out of the way of it unless they are dodging directly into it properly with timing. And even then, the lingering hitbox makes it very hard to do so. And the last thing I want to bring up in this conversation about Elden Ring toxicity is from a PvP perspective, both from host and from invader perspective, because I think both sides have some of the most toxic mechanics that FromSoftware has ever implemented, and they balance each other out beautifully, in my opinion. From the invader perspective, we have the Phantom Bloody Finger, which allows us to relocate and regroup ourselves on a click wherever we want. If we have a gank party coming at us, boom, we're out. And this gives us the ability to reset, refocus. That on top of, if you're so far away from a host, you actually see them on your HUD marker, makes it very good for invaders to be able to play the stealth game, play the waiting game, lay a trap, and really set up shop and be ready for whenever they come in. But, like I said, ganks. They are the bane of an invader's existence, and with co-op being the only real way to get invaded these days, invaders are going to have to deal with a lot of 1v2s, 1v3s, and so on. And unfortunately, in the current state of the game, there is nothing preventing a gank squad from just staggering you to death. Yes, there is no way for you to break out of a well-timed stagger lock in this game so far. I'm sure they're going to fix this in the future. Dark Souls 3 had mechanics put in place where you, after you took so many hits, it basically removed the stagger from you, so you were able to roll out and be on with your way. At least give you a breather to readjust and refocus. This combined with the Bloody Finger, I think would be perfect. But as it is right now, you can be stun locked infinitely and just not be able to even attempt to play the game. Bringing things back to the Invader side of things, though, you are able to go in and attack groups while they're fighting the world bosses. The world bosses don't close off an area, and I think this is a really neat mechanic. There was a glitch for the longest time in Dark Souls 3 that allowed invaders to go into boss fogs and actually fight their hosts while they were fighting bosses. This was a lot of fun. A lot of people really enjoyed this and thought that they should implement it as a mainstay mechanic. Unfortunately for Dark Souls 3, this glitch was removed, but in Elden Ring, we still get that option with world bosses being a thing and us being able to actively invade while these bosses are being fought. It's going to be a really interesting mechanic, and I think it's another aspect that makes invaders have a little bit more of a chance, even if gank squads are OP, and probably the #1 spot for most toxic thing in Elden Ring. But with every upside, there is an ultimate low, and we reached that with this message here from October, the FromSoftware Elden Ring account, that the game was going to be delayed by a month. Only a single month, but due to the pandemic and all of the fun stuff that happened in the last few years, the game needed just one more month to really stamp the seal of approval that FromSoftware wanted with it. Not a lot to ask, in my opinion, but this is the case. Not as toxic from FromSoftware because I think they were doing the right thing, but it's just unfortunate in general and just a sign of the world we live in where it is becoming industry standard for these games to be delayed, even by the shortest amount. It is not unreasonable, and luckily, the community threw their toxicity away for this moment, and for many moments like this, and are more accepting of these game delays so that the finished products can be top tier. But then you also get the other group that wasn't going to be good enough, and this was going to happen regardless of the delay or not, but it is unfortunate that it's happening at all. If you haven't already checked it out, I have a video, The Dark Reality of Data Mining in Elden Ring, and what it shows for the future of gaming in general with anything that is being provided to the public, whether it be betas or network tests or anything like that, being used to abuse the developers, being used to spoil gaming content for the entire fan base if they look at the wrong parts of the internet. It's just really unfortunate. So this is the ultimate toxicity from the community, in my opinion, right now, is the fact that a good majority of data mined material is story-based with Elden Ring, and there's quite a bit of spoilers from what I understand within that. Not only that, but it's a dick move to FromSoftware, and if you have any respect for the games or have any fanship of the franchises that FromSoftware has made, it is just despicable, especially considering most people are using it for clout. If you want to have more of my take on this, I do have a video on that. Check it out in the channel. And speaking of toxic, I did allude at the beginning of this video that there is something toxic about this video that had never been to the channel before. And that, my friends, is my good friend VaatiVidya, who agreed to edit this video for me. He is a content creator of his own like, and he does very good editing work as well. His link will be down in the description below if you enjoyed his edits or want to see some of his content. It's primarily survival shooter content similar to Fallout Frost, Stalker, and the like. Definitely go check him out if you haven't already. It would do me a great favor, and I'm sure he would appreciate some new members in his family as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Whiskey, for sprinkling a little bit of salt throughout this video. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. If you did, let me know down in the comments below. And if you did enjoy the video in general, maybe subscribe to my channel as well. We will be doing Elden Ring and Souls-like content moving forward, and as soon as February hits, it is on. So thank you again very much for watching up this far. I will see you in the next video, Tenda Crew. Much love. Bye-bye.